back to the channel, and welcome to another installment of our It book study. This time around, chapters 19, 20, and 21. With me, as always, is my trusty TA Fuzzlenip. Say hi, Fuzzlenip.
Hello.
I do like the Brighton Fuzzlenip. That's nice. Very
having
nice.
a little fun with the paint program.
You should do that voice the entire time.
I don't think so. I think I would be pretty much dead if I tried that.
That's
But
the
that's
idea.
enough. Hi, how you doing?
Good. Well, let's just gonna run right into this because I'm a few minutes late anyway, getting started, and we still have part 2 of the It miniseries to watch after this. So we'll just plow in. We got 3 major chapters. This is entering into the climax of the book, really. Now, these chapters stop right before the major climax, the final battle, the real deal. But these are all workups right into it. So big deal chapters. Any general impressions from you, Big Al?
Definitely the startup. Seems like even nature is kind of being nature is being affected by this coming conflict on both ends, and I kind of like the way that he's mirroring what happened in 58 and 85.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. I kind of like the mirroring of what he's doing. You know, you're going on the same journey, but at 2 different times.
Yeah, that's really cool. Welcome to all the chat. I see some people running in here with us now. Welcome. So 19 starts off, and the Losers Club, the Lucky Seven themselves, they don't know that this is the last day. They don't know that this is the day because they played in the Barrens all morning, played hide and seek, had a good time. They all go home for lunch, and then the shit hits the fan. Bevy realizes that that her father had somehow seen her down there, smoking and playing with the boys. So he's this is what I found interesting. It's a really great encounter because she realizes that it is working through her father, but her father's letting it. They're a great he's telling you come back here. She said, no, she said, you want to hurt me. I love you, Daddy, but I hate you when you're like this. You can't do it anymore. It's making you do it, but you let it in. And what is, so yes, it is the monster. It is the creature, but there's also some really cool metaphors here. Because think about this. Why did her father, feeling the way he would have and reacted the way he would have to seeing her smoking, to seeing her play with boys, why wouldn't he have marched right in there and dragged her out of there and made a big deal of it when he saw her? Why did he go back home? Because I think, and this is sick, but I think he wanted to go back home so that he could check her, right? Because he's telling you, take your pants off. I don't see if you're still intact. Just sick, disgusting stuff. But the book has led up to that too, because the book has talked about there was something weird about her father and her. It was almost like they made a scent when they were together, and it was uncomfortable as she was growing up because her father abused her anyway, and now she's becoming a woman, and her father's got more sick, perverse desires for her. So it's just so I think that's what it is. He let it in.
Yeah, it's going from just general physical, the slapping and the hitting, to now that she's becoming a young woman, that progression is just the frightening, as frightening an aspect. So
quite disturbing, yeah. And sorry, I got my cords tangled here. So I wanted to get this taken care of. There we go. Yeah. So, and she realizes that these things are coming to a head here. She realizes that elsewhere, it would be coming after them. Maybe he's coming after the other people. The other kids in the group there. Interesting. Her kneecaps. So she's running from him now. So this is when she runs right away from him. You get back here, Bevy, or I'll by God, I'll whip the skin off of you. He says. Came down the steps. She scrambled to her feet because she'd fallen on her taking a fall into the gravel there. Holes in her legs of her jeans. And then she keeps repeating, or she keeps hearing in her head with the parentheses, "Your pants off." She's realizing the enormity, the horrible, nature of what he's, going after. Her kneecaps sizzling blood, exposed nerve endings, singing "Onward, Christian Soldiers." These little little references to what she would have been thinking, and what kind of how a child of that age could somehow process the horrible, things that are dawning on her, from her own father. And I think this is really cool the way it's written at the end of that paragraph. Trying to find out where to start. But he wasn't in his eyes, the essential he who had washed her back and punched her in the gut, and had done both because he worried about her, worried a lot. The he who had once tried to braid her hair when she was 7, made a botch of it, and then got giggling with her about the way it stuck out everywhere. The he who knew how to make cinnamon eggnogs on Sunday that tasted better than anything you could buy for a quarter at the dairy ice cream bar. The father he, mailman of her life, delivering a mixed post from that other sexual state. None of that was in his eyes now. She saw blank murder there. She saw it there. I love that how, even with how god awful and wretched her father is, and truly is, Stephen King still resists the urge to just write him as a two-dimensional heavy. There were still, even with that, there were still moments when he was an actual father to her, and that makes it even more tragic and even more horrifying. But I love that, and then too, that's because growing up, as a child, your parent of the opposite sex is the first representation of the opposite sex, or the opposite dealings with that kind of that source of humanity or whatever. So its language is really well done there.
Yeah. And do you kind of see this as Pennywise kind of forcing the issue of the confrontation?
Yeah, because here it is.
Yeah, because he's picking up, like I said, it's enough that because up until now it's been small little confrontations if you got too close, but now he's using the father to literally chase her through town.
Yeah.
To get to her.
And you realize later, because Henry Bowers and his gang are waiting for her, and then you find out that it had approached Henry Bowers that morning. So it had been planning for this to be the day that all of this came to a head. It was the one that sent her father down there. It had Henry and his crew there waiting in the wings. This is the day that it chose for the battle to happen, when they're kids. So yeah, this is all according to plan, definitely. So then we have it is pushing Henry to chase her after her father's chased her, and that's juxtaposed with Henry Bowers invading the library back in 1985 and attacking Mike Hanlon there. So all of the adults, they've had their big night there, their catch-up night. They did the lunch there. They walked about the day. They had their experiences. They come back there at night and talk more in the library, and then they decide they're going to get a good rest to talk about tomorrow what might be done. They had their kind of day of reunion. So they all go their separate ways. They're buddying up for the most part, except Mike stays behind in the library, and that's that was his downfall there because Henry came there. So Henry attacks him there first. They have this really great horrible battle, but Mike's able to survive somehow there.
But it takes a hell of a wound though that literally takes him out of the fight.
Yeah, and he's out there, but Henry's still able to do a little bit. Henry's still able to work, and he gets a belt. He sends the car for Henry to drive him over to the Dairy Townhouse. Trying to find some notes here. I don't want to point out every little thing because because we've got a lot to cover here. But we can't leave without talking about what the hell is Bill thinking sleeping with Bev. Come on, dude.
Come on.
I know you don't like it because that's Ben's.
I ultimately, we those in the know what happens, but but I like how it's the night with Bill is juxtaposed with Beverly and Ben hiding from Henry and the gang. So it's like the two men who love her the most, kind of. I just think it's kind of a nice. It was nice to see like you said, like you've always talked about the courtly love that Ben has,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the more traditional that that Bill would have.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got I mean they all love her, right? But
Right.
Ben truly loves her. Bill though still has this unrequited crush thing going with her. You know, not unrequited because it was requited, but an what's the word? They never saw it through, you know, they never really you know developed it. So they have this undeveloped feelings for this crush. So on the one hand, psychologically you can think, okay, well, getting that out of the way is probably a good idea. And plus, even as they're doing it, which is this is not what you want to hear in this moment, okay? So as they're having sex, Bill's there and it says, as he entered her, she arched her back gently toward the thrust of his sex and muttered, "Be my friend." I love you, Bill. Be my friend. Talk about one epic hell of a friend zone. That's not the moment you want to hear, "Be my friend."
Yeah, that depends, considering when he is hearing it and at what moment. The bad time, you know, there are worse times to hear "let's," but when you're there,
at least you already got what you're looking for
least
there, right?
at least you're there. Yeah, there are worse times.
And at the end of it all, of course, we have him thinking about, you know, he's like, why is it should be Ben here? Why is it me? And then he says, you know, maybe it's me now because Ben's the one who's supposed to see the lady home, which of course is, you know, we know that's, you know, kind of in the cards. It's already hinted towards that. So yeah, they do this. Now, then they get the call. They run to Eddie's room. Henry has attacked Eddie as well. Eddie's arm is broken again, right along the fault lines of the original break. So, you know, there again, the symmetry, like you were saying, Al, of present time to everything that was happening before. Like a lot of moments here too, they start
Give
to
it up for Eddie.
Yeah.
Give it up for Eddie. I mean, considering that I am a little ahead. Give it up for Eddie.
Yeah.
I mean, God, you know,
Eddie's the man.
not to be taken lightly at all.
Well, we'll talk about that. I think there's a reason for that as we go through. Welcome everybody. Some people are making some really great comments. Chris Damien talking about the home behind closed doors. Wolf 10 Media, happy that to be here. But yeah, Chris Damien says that nowhere is safe. That's what they start to figure out. Once Beverly starts to realize, oh my gosh, people were watching this stuff happen with Henry and my father and whatever, and they just turned around and walked away. Henry himself was able to frighten away an adult, you know, so they start to realize this is the time. This is the day where it doesn't matter where we go. And that's ultimately, of course, why Bill says we need to go into the sewers. Right now, without a plan, without weapons. And the reason we're going there is because it doesn't matter where we go. Like you said, nowhere is safe. If we're in a store, it will inhabit the store owner to kill us. If we're in the police station, it will, you know, something's nowhere is safe at this point. It is coming for us. So we might as well go for him too. You know, that's what they kind of realize, which is,
right. Because the only way to get to him is to actually get to it. Let's just say, I mean, this is the first gender issue I'm hitting with here, but because they know they can hurt it after the it's at the house. But like you said, you know, if it's going to be using those avatars, they have to go to where it physically is, because they're just going to end up running or killing, you know, hapless pawns in this game.
Yeah. Marcia Harris said Big Bill got his nickname for his big up. Actually, believe it or not, the book is very careful to differentiate that Bill is the man. Ben is the man in that department. Apparently, we'll see that later. But yeah,
yeah, I got that. I got to that part today.
It's interesting. Just briefly say this as we see it inhabiting Henry Bowers. Bowers is going crazy now. Killed his father, you know, by its voice and everything like that. But kills the father in the throat, slices the throat. And it's kind of like it's speaking to him as a disembodied voice. So Henry is replacing his father's voice, right? Cutting out his throat for it is to be the fatherly. And if you don't believe that, there's little things in the language, like when he walks over to the sewer and the sewer's voice is telling him to wait, don't go after just Beverly and Ben, wait until they're all together. The voice drifted up to him from the blackness inside, and Henry felt his interior temperature plummet to zero, his veins and arteries freezing into crystal tubes of ice. But with these sensations came almost an unknown feeling, love. His eyes widened, a clownish smile spread across his lips. He's being like noticed, used, or whatever. It's just his sick, demented. Henry's even a little bit of a victim there too, awful as Henry is. So the father's supposed to shepherd the boy in manhood, and Henry's father never certainly was going to do that. But now it gave him that knife, and Henry's sitting there. He'd just been kicked in the nuts by Beverly. It says, now here they were, all three, him, Belch, and Victor Chris. It said, and although his balls still ached horribly, the knife made a comfortable bulge in the left front of his pants pocket. So there's little hints at the language of what's going on here psychologically. I really think it's really quite cool how Bill leads the seven in a tactical retreat from Henry, obviously, once they start chasing them, but he leaves them, and all of a sudden, it's almost, again, it's like divine providence. When the lightning strikes the tree, it's a perfect barrier for them to start throwing some rocks, and to have a little standoff. Then coming down the sewers, I love it when they get down to the bottom, and then Henry starts coming down. They're like, yeah, come on down. Only one of you can come down at a time, and there's 7 of us, and only one of you at a time. And Bill like, damn it, and he runs back off. I love that. That's such a clever little ploy. There's also the talk of is Eddie, Richie, and Stan are walking back to meet everybody. The talk of religion again, the talk of belief, and there's even that little thing you get in Eddie's head about. He'd heard a story. He goes to a Methodist church, and he heard a story about some little boy who grabbed some of the communion wafers, which is Methodist, so it's not, consecrated, Eucharistic in a Catholic sense, so they believe it's just a symbol. Even they don't think that it's really anything, but the act of throwing those in the toilet, we're supposed to have done all these things like turn into blood and stuff like that. And I think that's a neat way to get at belief and childlike belief again too. Childhood belief is so strong that even with something that the adults are telling you is a symbol, the child can make it real if the child believes, So I think that was, I was careful. They didn't do that with Richie, who's the Catholic, who would have literally believed because adults told him that it was, body and blood of Christ. So, moving along, making sure I didn't stop me, Al, if I'm moving past anything you want to talk about.
No, well, yeah, well, no, you're kind of hitting the high points.
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't write anything else down before I get to this next part, because this next part, when they're the kids are going through the sewers, and they're deeper and deeper. And we mentioned last night when we were watching the first half of the 1990 miniseries, the book is like, that's some serious literal shit they're walking through. I mean, they are like crawling on their bellies for like a little period of time through the sewer pipes and really through actual literal raw sewage. I mean, they are truly down to the the belly of the hill there or whatever. Definitely. But
are we into chapter 20 right now?
Am I in chapter 20? I'm about to talk about something here, but 12. Yeah, I think I'm on chapter 20 now.
Yeah, because the whole Tom and Audra thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good.
Bringing that in for another distraction.
Yeah, okay.
And having and using Tom, who's already an asshole, and having him see through Bauer's eyes.
Yeah.
And seeing what because Bowers is seeing Beverly, so now Tom's seeing Beverly. And he's already got this hate for his wife. It is wife, right? Were they married?
Yeah. Bill and Audra.
Yeah, they were married. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
No, not Bill and Audra.
Oh yeah, Tom and Beverly are married too.
Tom and Beverly.
Yeah.
I thought
they're not. They're not in the miniseries, but they are in the book.
Yeah, I thought they were, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But then poor Audra, who's just I feel so sorry for the character of Audra. First of all, her husband's cheated on her.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, you find out, I didn't know this because it's not the same way in the miniseries, is that Audra looks like Beverly.
Yeah.
So
Not quite as busty.
yeah, not quite as busty. So basically, they're not painting to me Bill in a very good picture because like I said, he is sleeping with the girl that was his first love, and of course he marries basically a cipher of his first love,
I
as
still
opposed to,
resist. See, I still resist calling her his first love. It's a crush.
well,
It's a
yeah,
puppy love
yeah.
kind of thing. It's not like they got into a relationship. It was a puppy love kind of thing. And a puppy love kind of thing like that, especially hitting you at a formative age like that, will really do a lot to shape your anima. So it made perfect sense that I can buy Bill truly being in total love with Audra, and there being similarities between her and Bev because the anima in his mind that Bill went on to develop and that Audra played into and they got married for and all of that kind of stuff took on a lot of the semblance, at least in part, of Bev to begin with. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I can kind of
Yeah,
see.
but do you think that Bill was living out his possible fantasy, or not so much a fantasy, but like that residual part in his brain that was attracted to Beverly
I don't think
through
that's
that?
why he married Audra, not directly.
Okay.
Like I said, I think it's coincidence because his anima started to get shaped, and Beverly, took on part or contributed to part of that. But I think it went on to more. I think Audra was not just a stand-in for Beverly. It just kind of, there's a link there, but not as big as the one you're going for. I think. Just me,
Yeah,
anyway.
but you just feel sorry for Audra because, well, knowing what happens, but then like, would she get a call or see it on TV about her husband's effing another
No,
woman
she
or
didn't.
something?
She just
Or
she tried to call him, and the operator said that somebody else had just called his room. So she starts to think maybe it was a woman, but she has no proof or anything like that at this point.
or was it Tom? Was it Tom that was hearing that his wife was doing it?
Yeah, Tom. It was
I
telling
got
Tom that
I
his
got it.
wife.
I got it mixed up. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
My fault.
yeah. All right. So we get this phrase. He thrusts his fist against the post until he insists he sees the ghost. This little not really tongue twister, but this saying that it was supposed to help children with stuttering. And Bill keeps coming back to it a number of different times here. He comes back to it when he's trying to see as a child. He's trying to tell them in the in the barrens there that anywhere they go in Derry, anywhere they go, this is it's going to get them. And then it comes back and he says the same thing while they're in Eddie's room and Henry Bowers is lying dead on the floor. And he says, standing here now, looking down at Henry's corpse, Beverly thought they're going to, Beverly says they're both going to say we've all become ghosts again, that it's going to start all of it. As a kid, I could accept that because kids are almost ghosts. But so this idea that, and they are going to say that, and that's what they do say, that should we call the police because Henry Bowers, we got a dead body in the room. And they say no, because if you call the police, it's the same case as it was when we were kids. The police will come and put us in jail for some whatever reason. It's in charge now. It's wanting to push the issue to the edge at this point. So wherever we go is not going to be safe. So leave the dead body there and go back.
Yeah, they even think that they'll be dead. They'll be dead before sunrise or something like that if they're locked up or something.
Yeah. So this saying, he thrusts his fists against the post. It's got some, and still insists he sees the ghost. I think it really comes to a head when the adults are now down in the sewer, because I love that the book juxtaposes the final battle in the sewer. It juxtaposes when they were kids having the battle with when they're adults having the battle. That's one problem I see when you divide it up. Even the miniseries divided it up to a certain degree. And I guess it's going to be pretty hard to do in a film version to keep it like that, but still it's telling. So I'm gonna skip ahead. I'll go back here because there's some really great stuff that I want to go to. But in chapter 21, when they're adults down there and Bill sees Georgie, it appears to him as Georgie again and is saying, "You killed me, Bill. Why did you let this happen to me? Blah 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 blah." And he finally says to him, no. He says, He the way he gets out of that, he thrusts his fist against the post until he sees the ghost. he's insisting that the Lucky Seven there have seen through its ruse. They've seen all the ghosts, quote unquote, that the things that it makes the town turn away from. They've seen it. They see each other. They are, it's an interesting little play on words, and that really is a saying for stutterers, but it also worked and allowed them to fight it. I thought that was cool. It's kind of brings the meaning of that.
I'm amazed at what works for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they took the traditional, silver slingshot, the slingshot with silver in it, but now you have the repetition of the phrase that is to help the stuttering. You have Stan and his book of birds,
mm-hmm.
and it's just interesting at what works as far as hurting it.
Mm-hmm.
And Eddie's camphor spray. I mean, his asthma medicine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the power of their belief. It's just interesting at what they're able to weaponize for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. I just saw Fan Man message us. He's like, "You guys gonna hate on me again tonight?"
Yeah, I answered him back. Yeah.
And you said, "No, just doing the book club." And he sent back Tobey Maguire crying as Spider-Man. So I'm writing him back. We'll still hate on you a little bit.
Yeah, we'll hate on you a little during the movie rewatch. I'm sure we'll get to
him. All right, so yeah, I did find the part you brought up a really good point there that I want to go back to. But as you were talking, I actually found the damn quote that I was talking about. So, well, let's put a pin in that. He thrusts his fist against the ghost. We'll come back to that because your point may illuminate that a little bit more. But yeah, the reason that what they do works. People are in the chatter here talking about the power of faith and such. The beginning of chapter 21 is fascinating because we finally get its perspective, its interiority. It's third person, but it's third person attached narration, and suddenly we get it. When it was there with just the turtle, it itself is incredibly. It's reasoning in the way that a hunter is reasoning, or conniving, a plotting, cunning kind of hunter is, but it has no, in terms of self-awareness. I mean, it's very, when you have a lot of elemental forces in certain mythologies that take place in a pre-human life time period, they often tend to be pre-lively as well. And it just sort of sitting there with the turtle, and the only thing that the only impulses it has is to feed and sleep. That's animalistic. That's not really higher functioning human. Of course, it has higher function in terms of the ability for it to hunt, but this is new. To fear is something new. To truly have to plan is something new, when it's trying to plan a way to get them and everything like that. But some of the cool things that we learn about it, and we learn about the children's ability to fight it here. So it says, for the first time, it realized that perhaps its ability to change its shape might work against it. As well as for it. So the idea that once it changes shape, it's subject to the weaknesses of that shape. If it can turn into a werewolf to scare children, well, then it also has to be subject to the weaknesses of that werewolf. And there's that wonderful line. It says, I think it's a little bit later. We're talking about the vampires. If there's a bunch of medieval, people standing around creating a vampire out of belief, then someone's going to, invent the stake as well out of belief. But it would kill the children because they had, by some amazing accident, hurt it. But it would make them suffer first because for one brief moment they had made it fear them. And then there's, what is it fearing? And it's fearing the fact that maybe, possibly, they're not working on their own. This idea of, suppose there was another. Suppose further that the children were agents of the other. Suppose it began to tremble. Hate was new, hurt was new, being crossed in it, its purpose was new, but the most terrible new thing was this fear, not fear of the children that had passed, but the fear of it not being alone. It's not talking about the turtle there, because it already acknowledged the turtle. The turtle's stupid, the turtle doesn't talk, he left the turtle behind. There's something else. And this is something we see in Stephen King's work over and over again. He's very just almost right at the cusp of religious. But I don't know what he would say about his own atheist versus deist beliefs, but this is a man who absolutely believes in some sort of higher power. And he's like, he goes right up to the edge of tapping into some sort of religious understanding of it, and he backs away every time. And now it's cool because you can take it wherever you want to as a reader. You can take it there
exactly,
or not or whatever.
Yeah.
But I see this, like, for example, in Salem's Lot. That's an evil, and you do have certain things of the church working against the vampire, and yet the priest, wasn't really the one to stand up. It has to be just like a regular guy, and the will to do away with evil or whatever. Needful things, when Satan's actually in the town running the little shop, Satan's not afraid of a holy man. Satan's afraid of the sheriff, because the sheriff's there to care for community and stuff like that. So you see him walking down the path of those tropes and everything, but just shying away from it just a little bit, what it still makes for great stories. And like I said, you could take it anywhere you want to as a reader. So,
yeah, because like I said, beyond it and beyond the turtle, what does it believe could be working with these kids?
And the children believe it's some sort of God because they're constantly praying. That they don't really necessarily believe in their church's God, but
I think they all have. I think they're all Judeo-Christian linked, because you have the
oh yeah.
I think one's a Methodist, one's Catholic and one's Jewish. So I think Baptist, they all Baptist. But so all the religions are there, and I think they're just tapping into the common ground that they all have. And maybe that's part of what that link is within them all. They're beyond the minutia of the differences in each denomination. There is the belief of God.
Yeah. And we get it again here the next time we jump into on section 3 of that chapter. Now they were coming again, and while everything had gone much of it as it foreseen, something it had not foreseen had returned. That maddening, galling fear, that sense of another. Excuse me. So, fearing that there's another, because if it is this all powerful, and suddenly there's something else, then that's accountability, right? If there's something else just as powerful and aware of you as you could be of it, then suddenly it's accountability, right? I mean, you can sit there. It's like a child torturing an anthill and like not even worrying about it or whatever, because he's so far above the ants. But as soon as he realizes that another kid's been staring at him the whole time do it, then there's a sense of shame or something, or not that it would feel shame, but it's just something like that. I also like the metaphor there for fear of it is subject to the shape shifting. So a lot of times fear in your life, I mean, will it just takes on this over the top, I'm so anxious about this job thing or the school thing or whatever. But once you start to boil it down and say, no, what specifically am I afraid of? What specific thing might go wrong? What specifically am I afraid of? Well, then you can start to take it apart a little bit and realize, oh, well, that's not so bad. Or I can at least do this or that to stop from that one specific thing happening. So it's a kind of it is the monster here is working as that fear, stand-in, which I think is cool. I just love these interiors of the it. Any of these 7 alone would have been its meat and drink, and if it had happened to come together, if they had not happened to come together, it surely would have picked them off one by one, drawn by the quality of their minds, just as a lion might be drawn to one particular water hole by the scent of zebra. But together they had delivered an alarming secret that even it had not been aware of, that belief has a second edge. If there are 10,000 medieval peasants who create vampires by believing them real, there may be one, probably a child, who will imagine the stake necessary to kill it. But a stake is only stupid wood. The mind is the mallet which drives it home. So that's why the battery acid works. That's why the bird book works. That's why the silver works and all of that. The book itself does a good job of providing those explanations, where sometimes the film versions can't really fit those explanations in as well.
Right. Like Troy Pacelli has a good statement here. It's like, better not to know the author's intent, better to project the reader's intent.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something to
Yeah.
be said for the tension between an authorial intent and a reader's interpretation. And there are people who will argue big time for just one or the other. Now, to some degree, you do need both, right? I mean, you can't, if the reader thinks it is actually really about the Holocaust, well, it's not, that's just like, no, that's stupid. But readers' interpretations they're perfectly valid to go where they need to in these readers' interpretation should take precedence, I think, over authorial intent to a degree. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's always interesting to be able to read something into something or to bounce off of what the author gave you and spark your own imagination. That's I've always appreciated something like that.
The crawling eye, we get this crawling eye come back to us. That's one of the forms that it takes to fight them as children. And again, I love the symbolism. What's that?
Yeah, I sent you the picture from the movie.
Yeah.
Of what the crawling eye was. So.
Yeah. You get this symbolism of the crawling eye. But again, who can see it, who can see the blood, who can't see the blood, how much of them does how much of the lucky seven does it see? There's this idea of seeing is believing. Do you believe what you see or do you not? So the idea of the eye is a perfect monster to tap into that kind of theme, for one of the embodiments. They realize that it is female. Audra's the first one to realize that, at least that we're told when she first looks into the deadlights. Oh, dear God, it's female. Now, why would she say that? Or, oh, dear Jesus, I think she says it's female. Because this is the same reason why once they remember that it's female, they're so terrified. And that's why we'll get it in the next chapter, but it's already hinted toward the end that Stan realized it. And that's why Stan insisted they come back if it ever returns, because female pregnant with eggs, there could be more of these little bastards running around. And again, remember, think about the creation stories and mythologies and everything that are woven into this thing. In the beginning was the word and all that kind of stuff. And the coming of it. Female is the creative force to a degree, at least in this aspect, where Adam's in the Garden of Eden, for example, nothing's being created. But when the female arrives, suddenly fertility arrives. Suddenly, obviously it takes both, but oh dear God, it's female. That means there could be more,
Yeah, because one, could it be asexual? Or
probably, yeah. Yeah,
I guess because if it's able to produce, then you really couldn't say it's either male or female. It's simply it.
Yeah, I'm not speaking like specifically literally with it itself, but just like with those creation kind of stories that it's tapping into. But it would probably be asexual, I imagine.
Because who would the daddy be? Which was even a more frightening concept.
I do love that each of the children kind of have their moment to shine. I love that Eddie just goes after that eyeball. I love it.
Eddie is badass.
He is. And because of the placebo thing, right? The books already set it up. He realizes himself that belief is a double-edged sword, because belief has been hurting him, the belief that he has asthma, the belief. And then he realizes suddenly, I can turn that belief around. I can believe that this is battery acid, so he kind of has that same epiphany that it does. Love that scene. And then I love, and none of the movies really get this right, that Stan has a moment to shine. Stan comes in and saves all their asses with the bird when it becomes the bird to frighten Mike and everything, and is pecking at all of them and about to kill all of them. Stan's the one, like you said, Al, stands up with his bird book and starts naming off the birds. I mean, that's really huge. That's really cool.
It's like I don't believe. It's like I believe in these birds. I do not believe in you.
Yeah.
So get the F out of here.
And I love that line. I even think there's probably such a thing as a phoenix, but I don't believe in you. I love that. And they're all trying to thank Stan. Stan's like, there's just no such bird as that. That's all. Because Stan is all about what exists and what doesn't, what can be categorized, what can't. And he was able to let that work for him. That adult-like aspect of his childhood work for him, which is so cool. Paladin says, man can create and destroy, only female can create life. Yeah, literally growing it inside of it. Yeah, exactly. Troy says, if the author's intent is not clear enough from the medium, then the author didn't communicate effectively. I.e., I don't want to hear an ex post fact. Exactly. I don't want to hear how actually Dumbledore was gay. Actually, That
You
character is
didn't say it in the
transgender.
book.
Yeah, exactly. Shut up. You don't get to say, yeah, 100% with you, Troy. Lucia Harris says, I have a theory that one of Pennywise's eggs survived, and that's why in later Stephen King books we see Pennywise lives in glowing storm drain. I don't want to know too much about what you're saying there, because I did just buy, what was it called? I did buy a book I'm planning on reading after this, which is another book that takes place in Derry, Maine. I'd never heard about. It was written like in the 90s. So don't elaborate on that comment. It might spoil a book for me, but I was thinking the same thing. Maybe like an egg survives or something. I don't know. But Muhammad says, why does its realization and fear work so well? By all means, it should make the monster seem much less horrifying. For me, it makes me think about other cosmic beings out there. I don't. If I understand what you're saying, I think it's the double-edged nature of belief. Like they're saying, it told Henry Bowers, I can get them if they only half believe. But if they wholly believe, well, believe in what? If they wholly believe that it's real and it can kill them, even half, whatever, then it could still kill them. But in that moment, it was talking about, when it says belief, their ability to fight back. Magic is, if you're going to use magic to fight somebody, they can pick up the magic and fight back. You've introduced the terms of the fight, that kind of idea, I think, if I've answered that.
Yeah, because they even use the magic when they sense that Mike is in danger.
Yeah, that's great.
They join hands and imagine that they send some of their power to him, and it wakes him, and it makes him able to defend himself.
That's really cool. Yeah, I like that. Send him power, send him our power. Whatever you are, send him our power. They're recognizing and addressing this force, that's leading them. In that moment when the adult Bill is seeing Georgie, when he finally fights back, he says he thrusts his fist against the post, and still he says he sees the ghost. Bill thundered. He advanced on the George thing. You're no ghost. George knows I didn't mean for him to die. My folks were wrong. They took it out on me, and that was wrong. Do you hear me? So, I mean, it's like, addressing all that old trauma in one go, but again, tied into that phrase, and you're no ghost. You're not who you claim to be and stuff. I love that. Mm-hmm. Going through here. Yeah, okay. So then we wind up this chapter with children and the adults, actually. No, just the adults. We round this up with the adults coming across it in his quote-unquote true form. It isn't literally a spider. It is something akin to a spider, something that only a human mind could only conceive of its true form as something like a spider, right? So it's like whatever it is beyond what we see. This been understood that it was imprisoned in this final shape. It's something else. There's some final shape, one that I can almost see the way that you might see the shape of a man moving behind a movie screen while the show is on. Some other shape, but I don't want to see it. Please, God, don't let me see it. All they can handle is the look of a spider. So that's a little bit more understandable and believable there. And then we, the idea that it's pregnant. Stan had known it was pregnant. We'll get that story later. And I like and I love the way the chapter ends. Chapter 21 ends. It's how did we? Oh God, how did we fight this? How are we going to fight this? And it says the ritual began for the second time. So the deadlights, they see the deadlights. Eddie's like going to war. Eddie grabs his aspirator in one hand and his broken arms just flopping around the other, and he's charging. Bill's charging, to save Audra. And it says the ritual began for a second time. And then the next chapter is the ritual of Chud, which is going to be the children and how they fought it. And then we'll go back. So I love the structure of the novel. And we've been bouncing back and forth the whole book. But now that the things are really coming to a head, we're bouncing back and forth faster. And that gives the reader a sense of tension. That gives the reader a sense of rising up, anxiety and, oh my gosh, the stakes are real. Something's about to happen. So I love that.
Yeah, and it was happening so fast that sometimes it was like, I had to think, it's like, oh, okay, wait a minute, are these the kids? Or the adults they're talking about?
Yeah. Sometimes you have to go back and look if you're kind of dazing away while you're reading it. Yeah.
And usually the clue was if someone goes, Stan, do this. I was like, okay, those are the kids.
Yeah.
Because Stan's not with them.
Yeah. so I feel like I really ran over those 3 chapters. They're such huge chapters, but again, just for the sake of time, did you see anything else you wanted to talk about, Al, or did the chat want to bring anything up before we wrap this up and move on to the It Part 2?
No, it's pretty. Like I said, man, Bill sleeping with Beverly just bugs me.
I know.
I mean, and not because I'm a Ben fan. I just think it's just a crappy thing to do, to cheat on your wife like that. And
yeah.
he's but it kind of works because although he is supposed to be the quote unquote one of the heroes,
Mm-hmm.
it does kind of make him seem real shitty.
Yeah.
for doing that.
I agree. I see it. I see it fit a little bit more than you do, but no, I agree. I don't like that choice. I really didn't. I didn't like the choice, and I don't know if that's because he just sort of kind of like wrote himself in his bill and he wanted to give himself a little action or something. I don't know, but yeah, I wouldn't have chosen that. I wouldn't have chosen to do that myself. So,
I mean, I could see I could see a scene of them almost doing it, and then they both kind of come to a realization that that's not what should happen.
mm-hmm.
I think that would have been more effective.
Yeah. Chris Davis says, question, did I miss this or was there any resolve to Beverly getting back home with her dad angry? So in the book, are you talking about? So yeah, in the miniseries, that was one problem with the miniseries when the miniseries puts her running away from her dad so early in the game, and then like the next time we see her at home and everything's just fine. Yeah, that was one problem with the miniseries, that it didn't show a resolve there. We'll get to something more than the miniseries gave us in terms of resolve if you're talking about at the end of this book. Yeah, I don't want to go into too far, but yeah, we'll get a little bit more of that.
Yeah, because it went from her getting chased and to like everything happening and then leading right into the sewers.
Yeah, she hasn't even been home yet in the book at this point, after being chased by her father. So, yeah. Do you guys hear that beeping? It's the fridge door in the other room. It's a little alarm when it's not closed. I need to go slam that shut in a second when I shut this down and reset up for the movie rewatch. Muhammad said, Professor Geek, would you have liked Pennywise to delve into more sexual fears because of the amount of strange sexual undertones? I would have thought there would be more there. Well, but it's children, so the sexual undertones or whatever overtones, they have to just be sort of hinted at because the children don't really have a great concept of even what sex is really at this point. I mean, we've had there.
But hold on.
Well, even
wait till next time.
Even then, we'll talk about it, what their understanding of it truly is, But yeah, so I mean, if it was a story of it going after adults, because even when it goes after the adults, it's trying to tap back into their childhood fears. So yeah, it's not, because that's one of the reasons it says that it goes after children mostly rather than adults, because it's adults' fears are too complex. It's harder to get at them more viscerally and to really tenderize that meat, and stuff with the fear and stuff. So.
Yeah, it's easier to take the form of a simple fear than it is such a, the fear of, I don't have any money. It was a shitty day at work.
Mm-hmm.
My car is, I need a new transmission. As opposed to mummies and spiders and that kind of thing. It's easier to.
I fear I can't pay my mortgage versus fearing a monster under the bed. Yeah. So all right, I'm going to close this live stream down just for the sake of keeping the book studies together, and I'll put that in its own playlist. Then I'm just going to quickly shift my my station over here to the rewatch. So it's 10:56 now. By 11:10 I'll be back and ready to watch the second half of the It miniseries, if that sounds good. Sounds good to you, Al?
Yeah.
Okay. And while we're watching the miniseries, feel free to ask any other questions you might think of, about the book or whatever, because it's all related. So that's fine. So, thank you guys for hanging out there with us. I appreciate it. This will stay up, and this will be in the playlist and everything for the It book study. But I'm going to close this out, and we'll be back. Any last word on Al? Are you laughing at?
I was laughing at Muhammad's comment about, I don't know, Prof, all Pennywise needed to do was show 2 girls, 1 cup, and you have Bill traumatized for life.
You make a good point, sir. You make a good point, sir. Very true. All right, I'm going to go stop this incessant beeping and set up, and we'll be back in about 10, 15 minutes, guys. Thanks for watching.
See you later.
That was really good, Al. That was good.
Thanks.